We're ready. Yes, we're ready. So everybody please sit down. We're going to start the next panel that has the somewhat intimidating title of Why this Resolution of the Congo Crisis Must Be Regional. I'm actually going to take my prerogative as moderator to change the title a little bit and turn it into a question because it's just as in the last panel, some people had disagreements of whether the Congolese problem was an economic problem or not. Some people have disagreements about whether the Congolese problem is a Congolese problem or a regional problem. There certainly was no disagreement in 1996 that the problem was regional. As you will remember, the AFDL that invaded Zaire in 1996 was largely a regional coalition spearheaded by Rwanda with military backing by Uganda, Burundi, Angola, Eritrea, Tanzania, and the diplomatic backing of many other African countries. There was also certainly no disagreement that the 1998 war that began in August 1998 was a regional war that split Africa down the middle with Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi backing rebel forces in the eastern Congo and with Angola, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and other countries backing Laurent Kabila's regime. The peace deal, as we all know, that was concluded in 2002 and led to a transitional government in 2003, included numerous provisions that in theory were supposed to bring an end to these regional dimensions. There were peace deals between Rwanda and the Congo, between Uganda and the Congo as well. And yet the crisis continued to be regional, and up until today, there's no doubt that regional factors remain very important. We have foreign armed groups in the eastern Congo, the FDLR being probably the most important one, the Rwandan armed group, but also the ADF, the Ugandan armed group. We have just this week with the UN experts report received confirmation that the FNL, the Burundian armed group, is now beginning to reconstitute itself in South Kivu province, led by Agathon Rwasa, who fled Burundi in the wake of presidential elections there. And last but not least, we often forget the importance of Angola as well, and the importance in Bakongo province, in Bandundu province of Angolan involvement, influence, and interference. So there's no doubt that there are regional aspects to the problem. I will invite the speakers today to speak briefly about their interpretation of both the Congolese and regional dimensions of the crisis. And for 10 minutes each, I warn you I'm somewhat draconian in terms of timekeeping, as I've been asked to be as well. And then afterwards, we will have a conversation amongst the panelists, and then it'll open up to other speakers. So I will go in order of as they are on the schedule, and I could spend several minutes on the various, on the biographies of each of the panelists, but I will restrict myself to what is on the schedule. Otherwise, we're going to be here much longer than needed. So I will start with Dr. Oscar Kashala, who is former and future presidential candidate in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank very much Brown University for its president, but also Professor Chino Achebe for organizing such an important event. As a Congolese, obviously, I do have my own expectations when I come to a meeting like this. My expectations are that when we are out of this place here, that a new voice starts sounding from this place, that what we've seen in Congo is something that should never happen to any country on earth. My country, you've heard from the panel that just came before us, is a country endowed with vast mineral wealth and a lot of resources, including our own people, our Congolese, who are very strong and very bright people in general. Professor Mazrui, we are a society, but we are a society that has a lot of lines of fracture. And these lines, if they're uncontrolled, they will lead to, understandably, to the destruction of the societal fabric that we have, that we call Congo. We've seen a lot in a country that has so much. A country, as we heard from Dr. Kalala, who was here before, back in 1957, the GDP per capita of Congo was about 220, was exactly the same as that of Sweden and Norway. 2009, it's 171 US dollars, whereas that of Norway and Sweden have increased by almost 30-fold. Why is that? That is due to many, many factors. The crisis we are talking today, which is the topic of this panel, is a multifaceted crisis. It's a crisis that involves the economy of the country. It's a crisis that involves the governance of the country and the leadership of the country. It does involve security. As we heard also from Professor Ali Mazrui, it's a crisis that involves the morality of our people, culture, beliefs, systems. It is a crisis that will lead, or has led to a much, much bigger crisis, which is humanitarian crisis. As we look at Millennium Development Goals, a number of questions will come. Why a country that has so much should be in a situation where it is? Why all this crisis, and what should we as a Congolese, but also as human beings from the United States, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ukraine, and Soviet Union, Russia, and from other countries, what can we do to help this country move forward? But what is of interest to me is not so much why do we have those crises, because I clearly understand the reasons why Congo is where it is. Congo is where it is, and this is something I tell my fellow citizens. It's not because of Belgium or because of France and all different countries. We have to stop, finger pointing. The Congo that I know, which is my country, is where it is because of we Congolese in the first place. We must be accountable for what is happening. What do I mean? What I mean is that the leadership that we have in place is very weak. As Professor Kankonda said, the leadership that we've inherited in Congo most of the time has been imposed upon the people. The president of the country, have nothing against President Kabila, but we all know that the president of Congo cannot lead a country like Congo. I always ask the question, can you take a cab driver and put in a White House and ask the cab driver to be driving the United States? It doesn't happen, okay? Why does it happen in Congo? It's a question that is extremely important, that is fundamental, that we must ask. Why has this happened to Congo? So the problem is a leadership that is weak, that leads to a weak governance, that weakens the country because of lack of institutional reforms that were promised, that were planned. And then because the country is weak, it does invite, at the same time, people who are coming to look for resources. They are looking for resources because they need our resources. So solving the issue of a conflict in Congo will require, first of all, cleaning up the mess in Congo, meaning cleaning up the mess in the government, which is corruption, which is inefficiency of public services in the country, which is also gross violations of human rights and abuse, but a lack of patriotism in the country. And we have to solve that problem first. Once we solve it, then we're credible to sit with the Rwandan leadership and the leadership from Uganda, Angola, and start a discussion that is going to lead to establishing, to building peace in the region. We cannot, and that's my hypothesis, we cannot build a sustainable peace in DRC as far as the leadership that drives DRC is not a competent leadership, is not one that is devoted to helping the people. So I think we have several mechanisms that were put in place. It is very easy. Rwanda is a country that is there. We're never going to throw Rwanda into Lake Kivu, just like Israel cannot be thrown in the Red Sea. It has to stay there. It's a country that exists. We must recognize they are our neighbors. Burundi, Uganda, all these are our neighbors. We just need to strengthen our leadership and build a state. And once we become credible, we can sit at the same table with all these people. We will then be respected. We can voice our concerns. Congo is big. Congo has a lot of resources. Congo has a lot of people. So it's my hope that in the very near future, there will be a change that will help the state fulfill the basic aspiration of the people. My people want water, they need food, they need job, they need education, they need infrastructure, so they can move from one place to another. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask Josè Kagabo, who is professor at École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales, to go next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to thank the organizer of this conference for inviting me. I'm Kinyarwanda and French speaker, so I can express myself in English with the necessary nuance I would like to do. But when I saw my panel, my friend, Professor Nkashama, asked me, why did they put you in Congo panel? The response is very simple. By end of 50s, I was the young boy like me was singing, na table ronde oyo to gagneo, na lipanda cha-cha tozoio. And at the same time, we were singing, Afrika Mashariki tunataka kusikilizana, ayao 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 huru. And I took this message as my heritage. This is why I accept to discuss the Congo panel. And what I would like to say is that since end of 50s, since Congo became independent, the solution was the people used to search solution outside. I want to remind you the Van Bilsen saying that the Congo will be independent in 60 years. That was in January 60. By end of June, Congo was independent. So history teaches us that it doesn't go as we would like to see it. History is a long process. We, as humanity, we are not give a birth as quick as we want. To come to my topic now, I think the solution of crisis Congo will be regional. Why? Because looking at the history, in 19th century, people used to travel freely from Bagamoyo, East African coast, to Congo, and to create the chiefdom and the state, Msiri. So, I mean, if we look at the long history, this region is free of movement, but it is not like this. If we try to look at what is happening right now, Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo are the CPGL. Can you help me, please, to try to translate it?
Economic Community of Great Lakes.
Yes. Now, yes, Great Lakes. Now, Great Lakes are a living community, including Kenya, Uganda, Congo, Brazzaville, Angola, and so on and so on. So the question is, while discussing about Congo, about Rwanda, about Burundi, are we looking at the same time, are we looking at what is happening, what is going on? And to come back to my second song, Rwanda is a part of East African community, meaning that Rwandan people, Congolese people, have now to look to search solutions into this area before they find it in Belgium, in France, in the USA. I don't exclude that USA, France, Belgium cannot play any game, but they are a part of a solution, and a part of solution is our region. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say that if we want to look at what is going now, what do we think about the effort made by Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Congo President Joseph Kabila, and to put them together, their effort to rebuild the Great Lakes economy. What we think about the meeting of our ministers? Let me tell you my own experience. 3 months ago, I met MPs from Congo. And discussing with them, I learned more than I can listening the discourse of Rwandan or Congolese in exile. Ladies and gentlemen, especially Rwandan and Congolese, please read a book written by a Roman historian, Mircea Eliade, when he talked about exile. When we talk about our country from exile, we have a look different from what we see inside. I would like to invite my dear friend Congolese to discuss with Congolese living in Congo. Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask Ben Kalala to be next. He is presidential candidate for Congo in 2011.
Thank you, Achebe Colloquium Conference. Thank you, Brown University, for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I would like to praise the Lord for making it possible for us to be here together today. He's the master of everything. Although the war in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2003 ended, so-called, with the formation of what we call transitional regime, 1+4, in which former warlords decided and agreed on power sharing of the leadership as a peace deal that they had between them. In reality, that war never ended. If it did, we shouldn't be here today. The United Nations Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Conflicts, Margaret Elizabeth Wallström, declared the DRC as the rape capital of the world. That statement is supported by the release of an estimation by the UN stating that 15,000 women were raped in eastern Congo in the year 2009. During the period of July 30th to August 4th, 2010, mass rapes were carried out by members of the Rwandan rebel FDR and the Congolese Mai Cheka rebels in the eastern region of the Congo. At least 303 civilians were gang raped during the seizure and attacks on multiple villages. These crimes occurred only miles from the UN peacekeepers' mission. However, the United Nations force was unable to protect the Congolese people. Again, since the mass rapes occurred, Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Conflict, Margaret Elizabeth Wallström, stated again that there is the potential for victims to be attacked in the future by the armed forces of DRC. As, quote, there is already some information from UNESCO peacekeepers on the ground that rapes, killings, and lootings have been perpetrated by FRDC soldiers. FRDC, as you know, stands for Congolese Forces Armées de la République démocratique du Congo, Congolese United Forces Army. As we know, today, 7,000 child soldiers remain in the government forces and also in armed groups. Children are recruited from refugee camps and are used as combatants, sexual slaves, guards, porters, and whistleblowers. This last part of whistleblowers, task that they gave to the children, will put them in front of 2 lines of fire so that these children can catch the first bullet from the enemy. The UN report of October 1st, 2010 identified multiple violations of human rights and or international humanitarian law following the investigation of 617 serious incidents that occurred during the period in focus. Now, that report declared that the violation may constitute crimes against humanity or war crimes, and the systematic attacks carried out during 1993-2003 could be characterized as crimes of genocide. Now, several countries, including my own country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, among with Rwanda, Angola, Uganda, responded negatively to this report. Actually, Rwanda threatened to withdraw its troops from Sudan, from the US keeping Sudan mission. Contrary to those reactions, the civil society and the Congolese diaspora and activists has welcomed and endorsed the publication of the report, and they are calling for immediate investigation and justice regarding the allegation of war crimes. Now, 2 weeks ago, on November 17, 2010, 21 US Congress members, led by David Wu, Donald Payne, Jim McDermott, Sheila Jackson Lee, Bob Filner, they wrote a letter to the Secretary of State, which, Mr. Moderator, I did not make enough copies for you, but this is a compliment of Ben Kalala at no charge. In that letter that was written by the US Congress members 2 weeks ago, the House members expressed their concerns over the conflict of the DRC and requested a renewed action from the State Department to prevent further violence against women and children. They stated, quote, "We were shocked and dismayed to learn of the mass rapes and violence that took place in the Eastern Congo, and in particular around the village of Luvungi during August 2010. And also they added, we are disappointed by the recent report by the UN on September 9, 2010 that details how the UN mission in Congo only learned about the attack a few days later, even though those attacks were carried out within miles from the UN peacekeeping station. And the suggestion is this. Their recommendation is summarized in 4 points as follows. The need for the US to press on the Congolese government to implement a comprehensive security sector reform, SSR, for the Congolese army. 2, the need for the US to help devise a targeted strategy to disarm the FDLR by focusing on its senior leadership. Arrest them and sanction all the leaders and the funding sources of the FDLR. 3, for the US to help create a multi-stakeholder certification process for conflict minerals to trace funding of these minerals to the FDLR and other militias. And number 4, they suggested an urgent need for the Obama administration to appoint a special envoy of the US to work directly with head of states in that area. Now, we're here to talk about the regional approach, regional solutions in the problem of Congo. Let's stay on track here for a minute. There are several attempts that have been made to bring the solution on the Eastern Congo crisis. The Great Lake regions, the African Union, and the UN, they met in Nairobi on November 7, 2008, and they called for a ceasefire. They also called on the UN Secretary to strengthen the mandate of MONUSCO and provide adequate resources for the force. They consider the possibility of sending peacekeepers to North Kivu and establish a mediation process and mechanism that will involve all the regional leaders and team of facilitators. Now, nothing has been done. The heads of state country members of Southern African Development Community, SADC, on November 8th or November 9th of 2008, they met again to discuss the situation in the DRC. One of the best the outcomes that came from that meeting was that they wanted to send a team of military experts to assess the situation in the Congo, as we know, to protect the borders between Congo and Burundi. But nothing concrete has been done. It's been talks, but nothing concrete has been done. I'm going to summarize, because of the time, that regional responsibilities to end the crisis in Eastern Congo and the Great Lake region should take in consideration different approaches: political, diplomatic. Also, these approaches has to be local, regional, and I'll add to that, the international community that played a key role in the destabilization of the Eastern Congo should come and help SADC and help Great Lakes region ICJRR to bring solutions to this crisis. Now, I kind of took the time from my fellow Congolese and my brother from Rwanda here. Kunda Batwari is still at large. Laurent Bosco Tandaga is still at large, while Jean-Pierre Bemba and other Congolese suspected for war crimes, they are at The Hague right now being tried for crimes against humanity and war crimes. Where is the justice in this thing? Dr. Stremlo, John Stremlo of the Carter Center, sent in this 2004 CNN interview that America has played a role in the mess, bringing the mess in the Congo. They should come and clean the mess that they created. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to ask Joseph Mwantuali, Associate Professor of French at Hamilton College, to provide his comments.
Thank you. Is this on? Yeah, thank you. I feel honored to be here and talk for those who out there don't have a voice or their voice is still not reaching the world. Let me start with this anecdote. The Journeyman Picture, an England-based company, has a video of the massacre that are taking place in the Congo, and it starts bizarrely with the gorillas in Kauzi-Biega, a park in the Eastern Congo that I know well because I lived there for 8 years, working with Peace Corps, working in the Rwanda, Burundi, and the Congo. We're based in Bukavu. And of course, then he moved onto the massacre that, the rapes and all, It's not until he gets back to the gorilla, then when one understands that the idea is okay, if you don't care about the people, at least care about the gorillas being exterminated. We have seen people risk, Greenpeace risk their life to protect whales. And for the Congo, up to now, it's amazing the silence that's going on in front of the massacre of 7 million people. Or today, we're counting about 400 women raped. I know Madame Wallström mentioned 200,000, but actually the number 200,000 that was for 2009. Now, the end of 2010, that number is almost doubled. But let me give you a case about this silence that I'm talking about. Taking off where my countryman just stopped, the case of Bemba. Bemba went back into the ICC last month, and this is what the court stands. I'm going to read it. Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo says, the court is not alleging that Bemba ordered anyone to rape or kill. but as their commander, he is responsible for his men's action. Small platoons were organized, groups of 3 or 4 soldiers invaded houses one by one. Moreno also continued. They stole all the possessions that could be carried off and raped the women, girls, and elderly regardless of their ages. The evidence will show that the charged crimes were committed by MLC troops, and Mr. Jean-Pierre Bemba was their military commander. With effective authority and control, he is the owner of the militia. He created and it to gain political and economic power. He financed it and he deployed it. Now, considering all these 7 million people killed today, all the women raped, the question is, where is the accountability of those who invaded the country? Those who started all this? Why is ICC able to issue arrest warrant to Milosevic, to Charles Taylor, to Jean-Pierre Bemba against Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, and not against those who invaded the Congo? It's just staggering. Or who created this Holocaust, because it is an Holocaust. Why is that no one is forcing the Rwanda government to hand over Laurent Kunda Batwa, after all the killings and rapings of his invasion committed? Why is the one who supported him, who supported Laurent Kunda, why is it not being asked to be accountable or take responsibility of these killings? We'll be discussing about that more, but 2 things, maybe 2 good things happened. The first one, I should say, it's the fact that in voting the financial report, President Obama signed a rule against this mineral and the companies, and that was a good thing. But then in that, at the same time, we find out that the companies, the multinationals that are actually behind all this looting that we've been talking about, they're being to self-monitor. And then it's like, okay, a company is based in Rwanda, it's based in Uganda, it's based in Burundi, has to go at the end of the year, tell the government what channel the coltan took. I mean, how do you tell a that the coltan that came from the blood coltan from a good coltan? Why is a company based in Rwanda exporting coltan? And the same thing, of course, we have this long, because the law has been signed, but now it's going to be watered down, and the Congress it's going to take years until it's actually, the law is voted by Congress. But people are being raped now. How long is it going to take until this law that we're applauding can do something about these women being raped? The second good thing is, like you just said, the UN went back to the blackboard and said, okay, MONUC didn't work. Let's vote the resolution 1925. The resolution 1925, which is good, it gives some flexibility to MONUSCO now, that it can actually adapt to the situation. Well, that's well done. But now what happens is, you will see that they're commending Rwanda and the government of the Congo for trying to do something about the FDL. Okay, that's very good. But you're commenting the same people who are creating this situation in the Congo. Now, not only are you commending them, but now what's going to happen? You're forgetting one thing. As long as you're not asking the Rwanda to negotiate with FDLR, I'm talking about a non-interim FDLR. If you're not imposing them to negotiate, how are we going to get this sort of situation? If they're still going to be in the Congo, and Rwanda is going to still say, they're in there, I'm going to continue making trouble in the Congo. But But let me just summarize, because we don't have a lot of time. We're going to have time to talk about all this. But we're talking about how can we resolve this situation, and I agree with everybody that the situation only be regional, a solution. Actually, I should say we should have not only a regional solution, but international solution. Why? Because we're not talking only the Rwanda and Uganda, and we had to get all these multinationals behind all this situation. But I'm going to make 5 suggestions to end. First one is democracy in the Congo and the neighboring the Congo is actually not possible as long as we're nurturing dictatorship. Dictatorship is a mass of destruction. It's a weapon of mass destruction. As long as we're not doing something, we see the dictatorship getting rooted in Rwanda, in Uganda has been there for a while now, and in Burundi, and then maybe in the Congo right now, but we don't see the danger in the long run. Pressuring the Rwanda to negotiate with non-interim FDLR, also Uganda with LRA, is going to help these people to get their problems back in there, resolved, so that the Congo can start democratizing. Number 2, each person who is directly or indirectly responsible for the Holocaust in the Congo should be inducted as with the same way the people I named have been. Number 3, the UN resolution 1925 actually needs to be adjusted so that UN troop be deployed in the border so that they actually can monitor what's going on, including the mines. B, they have a mandate to intervene in any further invasion from the outside. Number 3, enforce Kabila's respected freezing of the mines, because he said, okay, we're going to freeze the mine, but it's still being exploited, as we know. I have 2 more suggestions. Number 4, UN should monitor the 2011 election so that finally the Congo should have free and fair election. And I'm going to finish my number 5 by thanking Professor Achebe. Thank you, Professor Achebe. You can actually make our voice, the voice of the people of the Congo, land on the President Obama and Secretary Hillary's tables. President Obama will listen. He actually sponsored a bill that provided relief and promote democracy in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was signed in December 2006. Secretary Clinton would listen. She, like Madame Wallström, also went to the Congo. She saw these women being massacred. The women have been raped. She knows what's happening in there. That includes also making them accountable of everybody. I'm going back to the Secretary Hillary Clinton and President Obama should understand that as long as they do not stop supporting the government in Rwanda with weapons and military support, it's not going to stop, because we have a country, like they said, that has no army in there. You are supporting the Rwandans with weapons and training. What are you expecting to happen to the Congo? Thank you.
If for people who have visited Etienne Tshisekedi's office in the Congo, he has a sign above his office or above his desk that says "Soyez bref." So I will ask both the questions as well as the answers of the questions. Please be very brief and to the point. I'd like to start everything off by asking a few questions of my own. A lot of what you were talking about, issues of justice here, as well as issues of regional unity and regional dialogue. Now, the mapping report that Mr. Kalala mentioned, it raises a very serious question, which is this mapping report that came out on the 1st of October that documents the most serious human rights abuses between 1993 and 2003, raises a great number of different issues and talks about a great number of different war crimes and crimes against humanity. Many of the crimes against humanity that are mentioned involve regional players, including Rwanda and Uganda. There's a controversial claim that Rwanda may have committed acts of genocide in the Congo, but even bracketing that issue, there's no doubt that many of these abuses involved regional players. Now, there's supposed to be a conference in Kinshasa, at least the Congolese government has called for a conference in Kinshasa, to discuss these issues and to discuss the possibility of what kind of mechanisms could be set up, including an international tribunal, or perhaps a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or a special chamber within the Congolese court system. I'd like to have a few opinions, particular from Professor Kagabo, if I may, as well as from other people, as you're the representative of Rwanda, if I could say so, here about what they think about this issue. Is this in a situation where Kagame and Kabila are at unprecedented levels of good relations? Is this a good thing, or will this reopen old wounds and lead us back into trouble?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to say that I have no ambition to be president in Rwanda or Congo. Then, my discourse is different from what I'm hearing. I don't want to provoke any emotion. I'm just trying to look at as historian, and I want to understand the challenge of history of our country. Professor Mazrui said the Congo since 60s. He recalled what happened with Dag Hammarskjöld, with mutiny, with secessions, Katanga states, Kasai states, and so on and so on. Professor Mamdani about Rwanda said it's a paradigm. I think what is going now, what is going on in this area is a paradigm. Can we take it as a paradigm? If so, I'm going to respond to your question, gentlemen. Seeing President Kagame and President Kabila going over the conflict, talking about their country, their interest of their people, and seeing them talking about the interest over Congo and Rwanda, but also including Burundi, Uganda, and I feel something new is happening. So we have to go, that is actually my opinion, we have to go over our emotions, over our own experience, to look at the experience of our people, to look at the experience of our history, to look at the experience of our neighboring countries. And in this context, I totally agree with the effort made by President Kagame and President Kabila, by their ministers, by their MPs. I'm totally agree with people who, day by day, go over the border of Congo from Rwanda to make their shopping in Congo and vice versa. This is the reality I'm watching on the ground.
So if I understand correctly, you think having a tribunal or something like that would not be a good idea, would undermine these good relations?
So I have a lot, I would like to have a lot to say about the so-called mapping report. Again, as a historian, I can discuss the methodology, I can discuss the qualification of the so-called reporters, I can discuss the witnesses, I can discuss the testimonies. All of them are anonymous. All of them, most of them are anonymous. How to discuss with anonymous witnesses? I can't as historian, but I can't criticize the text. I can't ask the text to build the reality. I'm not dreaming. I don't want to make anyone to dream that from this text, from what any candidate on Congo or Rwandan presidents would like to see happen. That is not my approach.
Thank you, Professor Kagabo. Would somebody else like to comment on the mapping report?
Please. Is it on? I would like to say something about what, as I call him my brother from Rwanda. He's my brother still. Congolese don't have problems with Rwandans. Please let not mistake that the crisis in the Congo is not between the Congolese and the Rwandans. I'm going to speak here as, I want to take my political hat down for a minute and speak as an activist, which I am, a Congolese activist for peace and social change in the Congo for so many years that we've been fighting for this. Denying the fact that, as an historian, perpetrators of war crimes that were committed in Congolese soil, in the Congolese territory, should face justice. I have a problem believing that. Like I said, I'm an activist. Now, it is not because of having a presidential agenda for your country that you are going to forget what happened to 6 million Congolese women and children that have been mutilated, gang raped, destroyed sexually forever. Yes, there is a reason to be emotional about it, and I hope you understand. The relationship between Paul Kagame and Kabila as you speak is not one of the greatest. Let's call the cat by its name. Again, think of me as an activist here for a minute. Let's call the cat by its name. Congo does not have a president. If it did, Andrew Young, which is Paul Kagame's best friend that most of you know, who is also a good friend of mine, in our conversation will say, Ben, I think you're more qualified to be the president of your country because right now you have a disc jockey. That's Paul Kagame's best friend. Congo celebrated 50 years of independence in June 2010. In front of all the foreign guests, including the King of Belgium, Paul Kagame is going to take 2 hours, going to be late for 2 hours. The ceremony could not start because Paul Kagame was not in the Congo yet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's face it. Who is running the Congo? Where is that relationship that we're talking about here between Paul Kagame and Kabila? When we all know the past that Kabila played a key role in Paul Kagame's army, and a president that has no past in the Congo. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on that issue of leadership, because it's something that Dr. Kashala talked about as well. You talked about having, I believe, a taxi driver as a president. I've put this question to Congolese friends of mine, myself, and to people in the government as well, and they say, what is, under Mobutu we had everything from doctors, professors, even Laurent Kabila's government had people who had won human rights awards. We had the most esteemed people from all the way around the world. What did all this talent and education, erudition bring us? There's something many Congolese people I speak to at least feel that it's not about education or savoir-faire. It's about a certain moral character that's lacking in the leadership. In other words, you can throw Mahatma Gandhi into the Congolese government and they feel that he will end up being a crook. Pardon my words. So just bringing this issue up, is it really the problem of, Dr. Kashala, is it really a problem of having a taxi driver? Is it the matter of the education that's a problem, or is it something about the moral fiber? And if it's about the moral fiber, then how do you instill that in a country and in a political elite? It's not something that can just fall like manna from the sky.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jason. I think it's extremely important that we all are on the same page, right? So governing a country is a very, very serious matter. It's one that requires a core competency in terms of governance, understanding how the government works. But it's also a matter of projecting the profile of the leader outside of the country. Credibility that you'll be afforded by other countries depends also on the type of president that you have. So education is extremely important. This is why education is part of the 8 Millennium Development Goals. So I have a problem. I have a problem with a president in a country who is not sufficiently educated to grasp really the major issues that are plaguing the economy of a country, plaguing the social life of the people, plaguing security of the country, because we've seen all the results, and you've written yourself very nice pieces about lack of security, reforms that we, and the decentralization, all these things. They do happen because somebody is responsible, doesn't understand why they are necessary. The other thing, I'm going to stop there. I do remember Dr. George Aite, you know, in his book, Africa Unchained, he has a theory that is very, I think it is a true theory, though I haven't tested it, I don't know how to test it. He says very clearly that there are 2 profiles of leaders, right? So you have 2 profiles when you're a colony of another country, and then you have leaders who are there, they're trying to secure independence or freedom. Let's call it freedom. The tools that are using and the strategy and the mental processes going through the brain to try to gain that independence or that freedom requires a toolbox that is very, very different in shape, right? So it's the ability to be able to speak, to throw stones or bottles and all different things that we see in Palestine today to gain your freedom. But once you finish, once you acquire the freedom and you are on the other side of the fence, you need a different set of tools. You need to be a visionary type of leader, because you're gonna start building a nation now. You need some quality in terms of your mental ability to comprehend the processes involved in policy, throughout the world. You need also the ability to create a consensus. So if you don't have those type of tools, you're going to be somebody who is not going to succeed in an endeavor as difficult as that of leading a country. And I finish there. More specifically, I have nothing against Kabila. I can only look at the record, and I can only look at the President of Congo, look at the record, and look at also the people who helped him be there. Because I ask some of these people the question, why did you do this? Why did you lean so heavily to get the guy there? You knew that the guy wasn't able to do the job. Now you're complaining, okay?
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor now. I'll take 3 questions at a time.
I need to say something.
Sorry, yes, go ahead. Sorry, you hadn't said anything else. Yeah, sorry.
I need, before I give my opinion on what they just said, go back to what the discussion the panel had earlier about somebody saying the army using women as a commodity or wives. I need to make sure that we agree on the fact that there's a difference of using women as a commodity, which is also a crime. But the difference, what is systematically, purposely targeted goal of not only raping women in front of their family, getting their children, raping their mom in front of everybody, raping their dad in front of their family, shooting the woman in the womb after you have raped them, and not only to kill them, but to leave them totally damaged. There is something there it's targeted, it's prepared, it's purpose, there's a goal. They're doing that is to break a society. This kind of crime is not the same as, say, those military are just trying to have fun with women. Now, I'm now linking that to the discussion we're having here. Now, when you're telling me that, okay, we're happy these 2 people are working together, there are 2 things we need to point out. The first one is the Congo has never been in war with Rwanda. Rwanda invaded the Congo, period. Second, there isn't in the Congo a president that's incapable, not only arresting the rape, stopping the rape, or even convincing Kagame to give him in Kundabatware. You can't expect that person to do anything. Second, you have the person who actually brought all this into the Congo that nobody's asking to take responsibility of his action. So don't tell me that these two people are trying to do something in the Congo.
Thank you very much.